Hello and welcome to my favourite video of the year. I film this every year for the past 4 years, I think. It's where I go through every single book that I read in the year before, so 2024 this time round, and I rank them worst to best and give you like a one sentence synopsis as to why they're in the ranking that they're in. 2024 for me was a year of very mid reading, I'd say. Like most books, I kind of just felt indifferent about. There are a few that I really hated, and there were a few that I really loved, including what is probably one of my favourite books of all time now. But like the vast majority of these, probably like 40 of these books, I was very just like, meh, it was fine, didn't hate it, didn't love it, but you're going to find out. But first, something very exciting. I've got my first ever sponsorship on this channel. My first ever sponsorship, you guys, and it's a good one. This video is sponsored by KatKin. I swear it was a pure coincidence that my cat jumped up as I was talking about KatKin. Like, clearly he loves it. I say the word KatKin, he appears. Where has he gone? I just got my KatKin delivery through and I'm going to tell you all about it. So KatKin is a cat food brand with a difference. Biscuit clearly knows that it's food delivery time. Excuse me, sir. Biscuit. KatKin is 100% real meat. There are no fillers, no preservatives. It's just meat, and that's what cats eat. They are carnivores. My cats are my babies. I have no shame in saying that, and it is my responsibility as a responsible pet owner to ensure they're getting all the nutrition that they need. Literally, I cannot do anything in this house without him getting involved. It's working quite well, the sponsorship, I'm not going to lie to you. As I was saying, it's my job to keep my cats healthy. Biscuit. I am a bit ashamed to admit that the last time that me and Biscuit went to the vets, I was told that he is maybe getting a little bit large. The vet didn't necessarily use the word fat for him, but he did say, this cat probably shouldn't gain any more weight. And I've been very conscious of that ever since because I need to keep him healthy. But it's okay because with KatKin, all of his meals are tailored to him to try and ensure that he doesn't gain any more weight and hopefully loses a bit. KatKin food is frozen fresh, so you keep it in your freezer. It comes in little pouches, sachets perhaps, like this. You stick it in the freezer and then you can defrost about 5 days worth of food at a time. So you stick it in your fridge, then each day you can just go in, take it out, feed it to them. Me and Biscuit are still on his weight loss journey. How do you feel about that? He feels good about it. He loves KatKin. But I've also noticed a difference in my cat's just general demeanour as well. Like the litter boxes are way less stinky. TMI perhaps, but very true. They're so much shinier. They've got much more energy. Although I must admit, Biscuit probably didn't need more energy, but he has it. And incredibly, there's less hairballs as well. I tell you what, the worst thing about owning cats is the hairball throw up. No. When I first switched to KatKin, I was a bit worried about how the cats were going to take to a new food. Cats are notoriously very fussy. Biscuit, surprisingly, took to it like a duck to water, didn't even blink. He was just happy to have food. Crumble, I was a bit more worried about. She's a bit of a fussy girl, but she took to it quite well as well. You get these chicken sprinkles, which are basically like Parmesan cheese, but for cats. And I found Crumble particularly really took to the food when I had these sprinkles on them, so would recommend them. Another one of my favourite things about KatKin is that it's delivered straight to your door. There is nothing worse than going food shopping and having to buy like the big boxes of the cat food and then you've got to lug it from the till to your car and everything's heavy. No, I don't need to worry about that anymore. I just get KatKin boxes delivered straight to my front door. You can tailor the subscription to suit whatever your lifestyle needs. So you can get it delivered every 2 weeks, once a month, every 6 weeks. You can basically choose what you want. It's also super easy to sign up. You've just got to provide some details about your cat, about their lifestyle, about their weight. Looking at you, sir. And KatKin will do the rest. They'll figure out what your cat needs and they'll just send it to you. It's so easy. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how ridiculous this cat is? So if you're interested in trying out KatKin, you can use my code Georgia50 for 50% off a trial box. I highly recommend you just try it out and just see the difference in your cats. Or to make your life a bit easier, you can use the QR code which is on screen somewhere right now. So without any further ado, let me tell you every single book that I read in 2024. I never know which way to do this. Like, should I start with the worst book of the year or should I start with the best book of the year? I never know, but we're going to start with worst. We're going to count our way down from number 60. Number 60 is The One by John Mars. I hated this book. This was a premise that had so much promise, but it was destroyed by one-dimensional characters and just terrible, like truly terrible storytelling. Number 59 is The Push by Ashley Audrain. This is a thriller that's not very thrilling. It's just got terrible characters, a very predictable plot twist, and I just did not enjoy it. It's also about motherhood. I'm not really that into motherhood. Maybe that's a personal thing. Didn't interest me, didn't like it. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and for this one I'm just going to read out my Goodreads review that I wrote at the time, and that is a straight middle-aged married couple hating each other, groundbreaking stuff. This Christmas by Georgia Beers, this is a very, very boring sapphic Christmas romance that basically just feels like an ad for adopting dogs from shelters. And don't get me wrong, I support the cause. Like, my sister just rescued the best dog in the whole world from a rescue from a shelter, and I love him. I think it's a worthy, noble cause. But for a whole book to feel like an ad for that, it just felt like very like pushy, you know, and I didn't enjoy it. Plus the main characters, just there was no chemistry there. Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is a man-child who is being babysat by a younger woman whose only job is to stop him from having sex, and they end up having sex. That is it. That is the plot. Little Blue Encyclopedia for Vivian by Hazel Jane Plant. This is a fascinating premise and a really fascinating execution. It's kind of written out like an encyclopedia, but I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like it. It was too strange and absurdist for me. Maybe it's a very personal thing, but this is a personal video. I didn't like it. Number 53, I think, Circe by Madeline Miller. Shoot me. I just don't think a story that is about a woman being trapped alone on an island for thousands of years makes for a very interesting read. Okay, I said it. I didn't like it. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I just don't think I will ever get on board with Emily Henry books. I'm not offended by them per se, as I am with a lot of straight romance. I just find her writing and her stories and her characters really, really boring. Sorry, not sorry. The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Meyer. I just feel like maybe I wasn't intellectual enough to read this. I feel like a smarter person would probably take more away from this book than I did. I felt like it was making me feel stupid. The House of Hidden Meanings by RuPaul. Now, do correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like if you're willing to write a memoir, you need to be willing to share the good, the bad, the ugly. You need to really like delve deep into your feelings and your thoughts around certain situations, and RuPaul just didn't really do that. It all felt very, very surface level. Also, if I had to hear one more like RuPaulism, like an uplifting quote or a piece of sage life advice, I was going to throw my AirPods at the wall. Like, it was frustrating, but also slightly boring. It didn't give what you would want from a RuPaul memoir. I'm sure he's got really interesting stories. This was not it. The Christmas Catch by Claire Lydon. Two women embark on a road trip together to get home from Glasgow to, I think, Cornwall, maybe Devon, maybe Somerset, somewhere around the area of the country, and everything possible goes wrong. And I just spent the entire book waiting for the next thing to go wrong because there was always something. It was just a bit predictable. The It Girl by Ruth Ware. Now, I usually really enjoy Ruth Ware books. Like, I really like her as a writer. But I'm not going to lie to you, I have zero recollection of reading this book. Like, I could not tell you what it was about, so here it belongs. The Christmas Swap by Talia Samuels. There are going to be a lot of sapphic Christmas romances on this list because I read 10 of them for a video that I filmed in December. And this one was just boring. I have nothing more to say. It was just boring. The Tragedy of Heterosexuality by Jane Ward. This one had me hooked for like the first hour. I was listening to it, I listened to the audiobook, and I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then she lost me and I got bored, and the rest of it was just a very dull listen for me. Baby Doll by Holly Overton. This is a thriller that didn't go anywhere near where like I thought it would do. Like, it's about a woman who has been trapped in a room with her daughter for many, many years, and then she escapes, and you kind of like are waiting for the killer, not the killer, her abductor to go after her, and it just doesn't go where you'd think it would go. Like, it wasn't very thrilling. It was an interesting premise, but I went into it thinking it was going to be a thriller, and it wasn't. And also, it was just like so crazy similar to Room by Emma Donoghue that I'm kind of like, is this not just plagiarism at this point? I don't know which one was written first. Who knows? Honey and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagadar. This was a cute YA romance, like it wasn't bad by any means, but I did find the characters really annoying. And maybe that's what happens when you're reading YA stories as a 30-year-old woman, but it was the truth. I thought they were annoying. I do read a lot of YA and I don't always find the teenagers annoying, and this one I did. Curfew by T.M. Logan. I usually love T.M. Logan books. Like when somebody asks me for a thriller, psychological thriller author recommendation, I always say T.M. Logan. But this one just went down some weird roads for me. It wasn't my favourite of his. More Than a Best Friend by Emma R. Alban. This is a sapphic Regency romance. This had so much promise. I was so excited to read this, but it just left me feeling a little bit icky. I just felt icky about it. Variations by Juliette Jacques, or Juliette Jacques, maybe. I don't know how French she is, who knows. This is a short story collection, and as is always the case with short stories, some of them were really good, some of them were so dull I had to skip through them, so it kind of had to be a middle of the road ranking here. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Now, I did listen to this via audiobook, and that might be where I lost it because I didn't find the narrator very enthralling. Like, she didn't capture my attention. I don't know if Carmen Maria Machado was actually the narrator here. I'm not entirely sure. And people rave about this book. Like, in sapphic circles, people love this book. I just couldn't get on board. Like, some of it was interesting, some of it wasn't. I found the metaphors just like a lot. There were so many metaphors. For what reason? Just like tell me what you're thinking. Again, might be a case of me not being like intellectual enough to like hear a metaphor and figure out what she's saying. But I don't want to have to figure it out. I just want to read a book and enjoy it and listen to it, you know? Make You Mine This Christmas by Lizzie Huxley Jones. Now, I did not hate this book by any means, but this is a fake dating trope. And you cannot have a fake dating trope where there is more chemistry with the person you're fake dating than with the person you're supposedly in love with. It just doesn't work. Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, another piece of literature that I've seen people recommending for years and years and years. I finally listened to it, and honestly, it just felt a bit outdated. And that's nothing to say about the writing or the general contents, really, but it makes a lot of references that just aren't applicable anymore, really. Sorry, this is my truth. Take Her On by Emily Wright. This was my last read of the year, and I love a sapphic football romance. Like, if you've got any recommendations for sapphic football romances, please put them down below because I want to read them all. I'm so into female football. Could not care less about male football, like just do not care. Female football, all over it. Lucy Bronze, call me. I've asked her to call me so many times in these videos and she just never does. It's really rude. What was I saying? Book. If the straights can have their ice hockey romances, the lesbians can have their football romances, okay? Pizza Girl by Jean Kyung Fraser. This is a teenage lesbian, no, she's not a lesbian, a sapphic teenager falling in love with an older woman or becoming obsessed with an older woman. It's almost a cliche at this point, but I just felt like this book could have been longer, you know? Like, this was a short story, not a short story, it was like a short novel, but it just like, it could have gone deeper, you know? It was either needed to be shorter and like really like get to the point very quickly, or it needs to be longer. Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is Gossip Girl meets Made in Chelsea, which are two things I really loved, but like imagine those two things but completely insufferable. That is Magnolia Parks. However, there was also something about this I just could not put down. Like, I just had to find out what was happening. The characters sucked, like Magnolia and BJ. Yes, the male protagonist in this book is called BJ. They suck so much. I just had to know what was going down. I had to. Late Bloomer by Maisie Eddings. I do love an enemies to lovers. I really enjoy an enemies to lovers trope. And I enjoyed this book at the time I read it, but it was just a bit forgettable. Like, you know, there are better sapphic romances out there. This isn't one that I would straight away recommend to somebody when they're asking for recommendations. But like, it was fine. It was cute. I did like it. I just forgot about it immediately. Neon Roses by Rachel Dawson. I was so excited to read this book for the longest time, and I just didn't love it as much as I thought I would do. I really liked the first part of the book, which is about lesbians and gays support the minors. It's the whole queer history thing here in the UK. I do have a video about it on my main channel that I'll link down below in in case anyone is also a nerd. And I found that bit really, really fascinating. But then when the strike ends, I feel like the writer, Rachel Dawson, kind of just lost her way a little bit. Like the book lacked purpose, like it lacked a place to go, and you could really feel that in the writing. No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is a really thrilling thriller. Like I read the first 25% of this book in 45 minutes. Like I smashed out, I was hooked. And then it kind of lost its way a little bit. I would still recommend it, it was still good. There's better out there. Bright Young Woman by Jessica Knoll. This book flips the script of a very infamous real-life story of a serial killer, but instead of focusing on the story of the killer whose name everyone knows, she decides to focus on the stories of the victims, of the survivors, and she just completely twists the narrative. We Can Be Heroes, a survivor story by Paul Burston. This is journalist and LGBT activist Paul Burston's real life story. Like this is his memoir. This is his story about growing up in a very rural, quiet part of Wales, desperate for queer community. So he moves to London as soon as he can and finds that community, only for that community to be ravaged by the AIDS crisis. This book is beautiful and moving, and I did really enjoy it. I'm not sure why it's sort of like so mid in this list, but this is where I've put it, so I'm committing. In the Event of Love by Courtney Kay. This was a cute sapphic Christmas romance. That's it. It was cute. You can read it if you want to. Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. This was an absolutely absurd, strange story, and I don't know if I enjoyed it or not, but I haven't stopped thinking about it since. Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. I love Ashley Herring Blake. She is one of my favourite sapphic authors. I love her characters, I love her storylines, and this book was very just fine. It was fine. I enjoyed it. I finished it and I was like, oh yeah, that was a nice time. I enjoyed other books a lot more. Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. I enjoyed this. I always enjoy the Heartstopper books, but I just couldn't bring myself to put a graphic novel above the rest of the books in this list. I don't know. I don't know what that says about me. Does that make me a snob? Maybe. But I loved it. It's cute. They're always cute. The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. Can you believe it took me until this year, 2024, last year, 2024, to read this absolute classic lesbian novel? Because I can't, but I read it and it was good. I liked it. It was fine. It's not the classic I would necessarily recommend to people. That one's coming a bit later. Rosewater by Liv Little. I think I'm just always going to enjoy a story about a 20-something-year-old queer woman in London just like trying to make her way in life. Like, I'm always going to enjoy that. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, a straight romance I actually enjoyed. Stop the presses. I enjoyed this book, you guys. I think I just really enjoyed the mental health representation and just how honest it all was. I liked it. A Holly Jolly Christmas by Emily Wright. This is yet another sapphic Christmas romance. There are so many on this list, I'm so sorry. But I really enjoyed this one. Like, it was realistic. It wasn't just like a Hallmark Christmas romance. It was talking about grief and how heavy the holiday season can be for some. Holiday season, that was very American of me. How heavy the Christmas season can be for some. And yeah, I just really liked it. How to Excavate a Heart by Jake Meyer Arlo. Okay, this is the last Christmas romance on this list. I swear to you, this is the last one. It is also the one that I probably enjoyed the most. This is the story of a Jewish teenage girl who is moving to Washington, D.C. over the sort of Christmas winter break, so she can do an internship, and whilst there she meets another Jewish girl and they have this lovely little romance. Everything's very Christmassy, but they don't celebrate Christmas because they're Jewish. They have lots of very interesting thoughts about Christmas and Christianity, and I just really liked it. I thought it was a really, really cute YA. This is a YA where the characters didn't annoy me. See, it happens. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Lisa Jewell just never misses, ever. Like, she is always a good time. The Quiet Damage, QAnon and the Destruction of the American Family by Jessalyn Cook. This one is a heavy, heavy listen, and it was so interesting. It's a non-fiction book exploring 5 families that have been affected by QAnon and by conspiracy theories, and it will absolutely break your heart. Like, this was so difficult to listen to. Some of the stories are just incredibly rough. you find yourself wondering how people can fall to conspiracies like QAnon and how things like that can become people's whole lives. And this book is just very introspective. It talks to people who have been affected by their loved ones falling for it. It talks about people who fell for it themselves and how their lives have changed since. Have they come out of it? Have they not come out of it? So good. Sociopath by Patrick Gagney, another fascinating read, another sort of memoir that I listened to via audiobook. Patrick is a sociopath and this is her story. And what I found really interesting about this book is you're listening to it, wondering how much of it you can actually take at face value, because she is a sociopath, but also she's very introspective. She is very willing to learn about herself. Like, she doesn't love the fact that she's a sociopath, but she kind of makes it work. Really, really interesting. The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. I will always be a Lucy Foley stan. If you like a really classic murder mystery, like think Agatha Christie kind of style, you will like Lucy Foley books, and The Midnight Feast, no exception. This is Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. I watched the Taskmaster season that Fern Brady was on, and I sort of was very intrigued by her. I was kind of obsessed with her. Like, there was something about her that like really intrigued me and drew me in. And then I heard that she'd written a book, and she'd written a book about growing up as an autistic girl, and I knew I needed to listen to it immediately, and it was really, really good, really interesting. I loved Fern's sort of takes on being autistic and how society treats autistic people, especially autistic women. I liked it. I really liked it. Being a comedian, she is of course very funny, but she's also a really good storyteller. Count Your Lucky Stars by Alexandria Bellefleur. Sometimes all you need is a very good adult spicy romance. And Alexandria Bellefleur, she delivers every time. Like, every time I pick up one of her books, I know I'm going to enjoy it, and Count Your Lucky Stars is no exception. The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Let me tell you, there is a reason why everyone is talking about this book. This is a truly gripping thriller. Like, you cannot put it down. You pick it up and you've got to be settled in for like 2-3 hours, because you are going to finish that book in one sitting. I am really, really hard to please when it comes to thrillers, because I've read so many in my life, and this is one of the best. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I have never simultaneously loved and hated a book as much as I love this one. Like, I wanted to throw my Kindle at the wall at some points. Like, the main character in this sucks so much, but you know it's really good writing when an author can make you feel that much hatred for a main character. From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley. I was raised on Elvis's music. Like, I've always been an Elvis fan. My parents love Elvis, so much so that about 6 years ago they took us on a family holiday to Memphis to go and see Graceland. Like, that is where my family are at. And so I was very intrigued to read Lisa Marie Presley's book, especially in the aftermath of her own death. And I was just really gripped by this book. I think I listened to the audiobook in like 2 or 3 days, which never happens. Like, I usually only listen to audiobooks when I'm out the house, like when I'm out and about doing things. But this one I like listened to as I was in the house. I just sat on the sofa and listened to this book. Chlorine by Jade Song. I did not expect to enjoy this book. Like, I didn't think I'd like it at all, and I was so happy to be proved wrong. This is the story of a teenage girl called Ren who is obsessed with the idea of becoming a mermaid, until eventually she actually does become one. A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe. Like, is this objectively one of the best written books on this list? Probably not, but is it one that I just enjoyed the most? Absolutely. It's a... Would I describe this as YA? Like, the main character's like 18, but I don't know if it's written necessarily for a young audience. Maybe it is. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. You've got an 18, 19-year-old girl discovering her sexuality, and you've got her love interest, Steph, who is very much comfortable with her sexuality. She's very ingrained in the queer community, and they're sort of trying to make those two ends of the spectrum work together. Down the Drain by Julia Fox. I must admit, I had very little knowledge of Julia Fox before reading this or listening to it. I only picked up because of all the incredible reviews, and oh my god, I am now obsessed with this woman. She is so cool. Like, Julia Fox has lived a life. She has got a million different stories. She is such a highly fascinating person, and I highly recommend the audiobook because it is narrated by her. Girls Can Kiss Now by Jill Gutowitz. This is a collection of essays about pop culture and millennial pop culture, and Jill Gutowitz's own coming out story and how her story relates to pop culture. It's very millennial. It is very me. Like, This book encapsulates me as a person. I just enjoyed every single chapter, every single essay, I should say. I can see how some people might find it like very cringy, very millennial, but some of us are very cringy, very millennial. Like there are so many essays in this I like personally relate to on a deep, deep level. There are so many essays that I've listened to way more than once. I loved it. Those Who Wait by Haley Cass. This is a 600-page sapphic romance, and when I tell you, that wasn't nearly enough. Like I would read another 600 pages on Sutton and Charlotte. Like I just love them as a couple. I love the storytelling in this. I love the characterizations. If you want to read a sapphic romance, this is the one. Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. This is the lesbian classic. Like if you're looking to read a lesbian classic book, this is the one you should read. Molly Bolt, the protagonist in this, is one of my favourite book characters of all time, ever. I love her. That Green-Eyed Girl by Julia Owen Moylan, like a historical sapphic romance set in New York City between the 1950s and 1970s. Like, sign me up. That is me in a book. Adored. Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a memoir from the survivor of the Stanford sexual assault. It tells Chanel's story from the day the attack happened, from the day the assault happened, all the way through to the end of the trial and beyond. This book made me so angry to my very core, not with Chanel obviously, but just with the justice system, with how people treat rape and rape victims. I literally angry cried at this book at least 3, 4, maybe 5 times. It was so frustrating to read, but also like I didn't live this experience, like she did, and she's the one telling the story in the audiobook. I listened to it via audiobook obviously, and I highly recommend you listen to the audiobooks. You can hear the pain and the frustration in her voice, and I think it just adds this whole other level. I think reading it would be really, really hard. Like I think if I was reading it, I would have put it down and probably not picked it up again. But hearing her voice, like hearing the pain and the emotion in her voice, like this book is incredible. It is truly incredible. And here we are into my top 3 reads of 2024. Number 3 is what is officially now my favourite memoir of all time, is Educated by Tara Westover. Tara grew up in a survivalist Christian family living in the mountains of Idaho. She was never allowed to get any sort of education. She was very much kept away from mainstream society, but she just always had this urge to be educated. And somehow she went from that, from never being educated as a child, from not being allowed to go to school for many, many years, to going to Harvard and Cambridge. Like her story is truly incredible, and the way she tells it, let's just say you can tell she went to Harvard and Cambridge. Number 2, Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Of course, like I haven't spoken enough about this book this year, I was just obsessed with it. It was one of the first things I read in 2024, and only just got picked to the post as my favourite book of the year. This is sapphic love, it's grief, it's loving somebody so much that you know when to let go. This book tore my heart out, ripped it into a million pieces, and then didn't put it back in. It didn't, it's just all over the floor. And my number 1 favourite book of 2024, drumroll please, we all know what I'm about to say, it is Sunburn by Chloe Michelle Howarth. I really did not expect to enjoy this book as much as I did when I first picked it up. Like I'd seen people saying it was beautiful, but I was kind of like, I'm not a big fan of like slow burn romance. Like it's very like descriptive, flowery writing. I just didn't think it was going to be for me, but boy, was this book for me. This book was all for me. This is the story of a girl called Lucy. She is a teenager living in rural Catholic Ireland, and she is sort of realising that she's very in love with her best friend, Suzanne. I can't remember her name. She's in love with her best friend, and she's sort of like dealing with those feelings in this backdrop of being in a very Catholic small town, small village, like very small place. But luck would have it, turns out her best friend is also having the same feelings, and they end up going down very different paths. They have very different ways of dealing with their queerness, with their emotions around it. And the only way I can describe this book to people without like fully spoiling it is saying this book is Good Luck Babe by Chapel Roan in book form. And if I'm referencing my deep, deep love, Chapel Roan, in comparison to a book, you know it's going to be good, because I would ride or die for Chapel Roan. So there we are, 60 books in 2024. I also have a goal of reading another 60 books in 2025. Hopefully I'll be able to do it. I mean, now I'm focusing more on this channel. That's a really good excuse for me to read even more books. Please comment down below and tell me your favourite book of the year and your worst book of the year. I want to hear them both. I want to discuss. Like, give me all the juicy details. I want to know everything. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. If you've watched to this point of the video and you are not subscribed, what are you doing? Like, clearly you're enjoying my company. Subscribe to this channel. I have a crazy goal of reaching 50,000 subscribers on this channel by the end of 2025. Am I going to do it? Am I going to be watching this back in a year's time and be like, oh, that's embarrassing, you didn't get anywhere near there? Probably. But you've got to aim for the stars, you know? That's what I'm going for. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe, join the family. I'm Georgia. I talk about gay books on the internet. It's kind of my whole thing. Also, a massive thank you to KatKin for sponsoring this video. Can you believe I've got a sponsor on this channel? I couldn't believe it. It's very exciting. My cats love KatKin. I love KatKin. I love feeding them something that I know is good for them, because cat food has a lot of nasties and things that you don't really like, things you wouldn't feed yourself. So why are you feeding your cat those things? You know? I just really like KatKin. As I said in the integration at the beginning, you can use my code Georgia50 for 50% off your trial box of KatKin. I highly recommend you give it a go. Your cats will love it, and in turn, they will love you, and we all know how hard it is to make a cat love you. Anyway, thanks for watching, I suppose. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.